obviously after the mistake on Saturday, it was like full redemption. So I'd say Rome, but we've had some real good highlights, some lows as well. But we're in this position for a reason, and I'm hoping that we can just try and achieve the good results we've had over the past sort of 6-7 rounds.
Right, mate. Good luck. All the best. I'm sure you got this, and let's go and eat some chocolate cake.
I don't think it's chocolate.
Well, yours looks like chocolate.
Cheers, brother.
I've made it though, obviously, so I know it's chocolate.
Sure.
Well, that's certainly one way to whet our appetite there. Jake Dennis, of course, looking for the cherry on top this weekend with that championship win. I'm delighted to say that with me now is Oliver Askew, former Andretti Formula E driver, who knows Jake Dennis better than any of us.
I do, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to understand the psyche of Jake. I had a chat with him earlier in the week, and he was saying how he got into karting and motorsport through just hanging out with his dad at a racetrack. His dad was a karter, and his dad never put any pressure on him to get into racing. Jake just thought, I'll just give this a go. Oh, it's a bit of fun. And he said his main ambition for the weekend was he just wanted to be friends with everyone and have fun. Now,
that sounds
has
like
that
him.
kind of, because of that mental approach to getting into racing, he's had no real sort of pressure on him to win, to fight for championships.
Right.
Do we see that in his sort of mental attitude towards that now?
He's a very happy-go-lucky guy. He's a smooth operator. He lets all of his talking happen on track, and he has so much natural confidence about him. Whether it's qualifying, the race, even in the simulator, all the preparation. He's just an extremely talented driver and someone that I learned a lot from last year. And this is an extreme occasion for him. Home race. This is a track that he's won in the past. He won here last year, so I think we can expect him to have a fantastic weekend. And to speak on this team as well, they've been here since season 1, Andretti, now Avalanche Andretti. Some of this team has been here since the beginning as well, so it's a very well-oiled organization, and you can just see the results are coming.
He just seems so relaxed in his approach coming into such a big weekend. And, as you mentioned, the Andretti name, Michael Andretti's been at the last couple of races. And again, I don't think Michael's been putting too much pressure on Jake. I think, again, that sort of the team, the relationship, it just seems to work really well. And fingers crossed it does pay off for him this weekend. But of course, it's not just about the Drivers' Championship this weekend. There's a lot to play for with the Teams' Championship as well. And that's when, that's when the big checks get signed, actually. So it has a huge knock-on effect. The prize money in Formula E for those teams, it has a knock-on effect to what happens next season. And let's go down to Saunders, who can tell us just how tight it is at the top. I think, is it 14 points is the magic number, Saunders, between Envision and Porsche?
Yeah, I mean, but actually it's bigger than that. We're talking about the top 4, really. It's much bigger than that. There's 35 points between the top 4 and 90 odd available. So it shows you just how tight that is. And of course, Envision being at the very top of that pack, leading the championship, and their championship hopeful Nick Cassidy in the run for the title. Now, we will be talking more about that very, very shortly. But first, I want to talk about an initiative that the Envision team have brought to the London race weekend. It's their Recover E project, where they've been collaborating with school kids from across the country, an artist to create a life-size replica of a Formula E Gen 3 car built entirely out of e-waste. Take a look at this.
Taking things apart and kind of questioning things, you then realise that in these everyday products there's so much going on. Deconstructing that and then creating something else from all these parts, that's the fun and exciting bit. The project is called Recovery. It's commissioned by Envision Racing to recreate their Gen 3 car out of post-consumer electronic waste.
So important to kind of encourage kids to see the beauty and the value in materials. There's so many different things that we can use as materials to make other things from, such as Formula E car.
The likes of games consoles, phones, radios, all sorts of electronic waste to highlight the problem that we're in.
The challenging part is a constantly evolving piece. So I want to create this sense of movement. I wanted it to feel as though it's been driven and like it's lost its outer shell to uncover what's underneath these things. You just imagine a little race car running around these as if it was a little race circuit. You learn so much by taking things apart. You see the beauty of
what goes into these products. Hopefully this kind of inspires people to take things apart and see actually how they're built, how materials work, and if you can make something from them, then great. If not, then recycle the bits that we can do. The message that I want to send to people is to take some more thought and consideration over the things that we use on a day-to-day basis.
Now, what an incredible initiative. An amazing thing that Envision are always doing great things like that. And I think it's a stark reminder, a great way to symbolise something that is lesser talked about with e-waste. So great work from them. Now let's get down to business. Let's talk about Nick Cassidy, the man currently in second in the standings, hunting for that title, because there are three main things that I want to talk to you about when it comes to Nick Cassidy and that hunt for the title. The first, hunt being the optimum word. Nick Cassidy is a hunter. We've seen time and time again this season, he does his best when he's hunting the pack above him. The driver's leading him. When he's in the lead, he doesn't do as well. It's exactly where he is this weekend. The second thing is energy management. If this race comes down to energy management, there are fewer cars better ready for a hungry race than this Jaguar-powered Envision car and Nick Cassidy, who, by the way, has never won a race. It's his three he has won this season. He hasn't won from any lower than 8th on the grid, which means this car, this driver can climb. And the final being qualifying. The word on the street in the paddock is that qualifying is going to be essential here in London. This man is coming off the back of his best qualifying performance yet. So does that mean that Nick Cassidy and Envision have got everything ready right in the perfect time to hunt for that title and Jake Dennis? Problem is, he's not the only one hunting for it. Check this out. Things are getting very, very spicy in the paddock.
I've never seen this guy so determined, and he wants to win more than anything.
Nick Cassidy, who's done it again. Jake Dennis, what a drive.
Oh my God, boys, what have we just done?
It's time for a beer. We just need to make sure we're there at the end because it's going to be a lot of chaos.
Love it.
Yeah, we love it. We love that though, don't we?
Oh my God.
That was so good.
Woo. What a race.
Like a drive, man.
Because anything can change right to the last moment, right?
That is unbelievable. What a race, what a race.
This is the only opportunity to keep the championship title fight alive.
Jake Dennis has still got a chance.
Yes! Oh my God.
We keep going.
Yep.
You just don't want to take yourself out of title contention here.
What is that swerving under braking, man?
Smash the back of me.
If you're not confident at a track like this, you're in trouble.
Jake Dennis, what a drive it has been.
Woohoo! Yeah, baby!
Envision are super fast at the moment. They seem to have hit the sweet spot.
The races are getting tighter, they're getting more competitive.
All eyes on the title fight at the front as we head to London.
And ahead of those drivers this weekend, 20 corners around the London XL here, 10 of them under the roof, under cover, but if it rains, the other 10 will be a bit damp and wet for them. Let's look at some of the historical incidents we've seen here in the past. The start last year, Jake Dennis was on pole position with the two Mercedes cars behind him, but this is the pinch point that we see heading down into turn 1. We just see this concertina effect. Now, this is why Dario was saying before, it's so important for Jake to qualify up at the front, because watch this row of cars here. We got Sam Bird, Edo Mortara, and John-Eric Verne on the inside of the Techeetah car there, and they make contact. We'll go on board in a second, and this is where, on board with Mortara, he's got cars bashing in front, one on the inside, one on the outside, nowhere to go, and in the end, all three hit each other. And for Jake, he needs to avoid this sort of situation. He needs to qualify up front to make sure he doesn't get in there. Now, for everyone else, if you get through the first corner, okay, you get down to turn 5. And on that occasion, it was Oliver Askew who's here with us this weekend. Watch there in the Andretti car. So that's Oliver. There is Oliver Rowland coming up alongside him. And unfortunately, the wall doesn't move. And they make contact. And that sends Rowland up into the air. And if we play it on, you'll see he lands and goes straight into the Techeetah car. So there's perils everywhere. However, there is also opportunity for overtaking. Turn 1, we've seen some moves down into there. This was Sergio Setecamera in the Dragon car going past Nick de Vries, the champion here in the past. into turn 1. That is an opportunity. It is hard to get it done, but there is a chance. Turn 10, another chance here. This was Nick Cassidy getting past Sete Kamara on that occasion. You carry a lot of momentum through, but there's enough of an opportunity there. And turn 16, where we'll have the attack mode this weekend, that also gives drivers a way to just sneak up the inside, and you need to be careful because the track goes immediately to the left, and you can also lose momentum up to the penultimate corner. So there are chances to overtake. It is narrow, but it's going to be a real challenge to stay out of trouble for the drivers.
Well, I'm delighted to say that joining us now is Ian James, the McLaren team principal, who this is actually, even though you have won a couple of championships before for Mercedes, this is the first time you're racing on home soil for McLaren. So this is a big race for you guys, of course, with Jake Hughes as well.
Yeah, it's very much a home race for us. We had another home race, of course, earlier on in the season in Diriyah, and things went quite well there. So I've got high hopes for our second home race, if you like, in London. It's a great location as well, so I can't wait to get it underway.
But you know what it's like dealing with the pressure when there's a championship at stake. Looking at, you know, what the Andretti guys are going through, how does it make you feel? Does it bring back some wonderful memories?
You know what? It's easy to say I don't envy them because of that pressure. I really envy them right now. I really want to be in that position and not where we are at the moment. But no, you know, it does put a slightly different dynamic on it. At the same time, we want to make sure that we can maximise our points here and get whatever we can out of the season. So I think they'll be feeling it at the moment, but we're going to be knuckling down and making sure that we can do whatever we can.
So talking about the season, it started off unbelievably. Sorry, Ian. But it started off so well, and particularly Rome was a bit of a struggle. What's been going on?
Yeah, I think if I look back over the season as a whole, we came out of the starting blocks actually very well, probably
yes,
a lot better than a lot of people expected. I think that's really testament to the operational excellence that we have within the team. But as other teams got used to Gen 3 and closed the gap a little bit, I think that the overall performance of the package has sort of shown its true colours. Having said that, I think actually we've been taking some steps forward throughout the season together with Nissan, which is great. Rome was tough for us. I'm the last person to say, you know, it's down to luck sometimes or not. I think you put yourself in a certain position, especially on Sunday. I think if I look at that, we didn't qualify brilliantly.
Sometimes it's just luck, though, isn't it?
No, that was Saturday actually. That was very unfortunate. But listen, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we qualify well. We need to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in that mid-pack and then avoiding the kind of incidents that can happen as they did on that Sunday. We bounce back from it, we do what we can and make sure that the next race is better.
And he's getting ready at the moment to get into the car because, of course, in a few minutes at the end of the FP show, we go straight into the first session of the weekend for FP1. But you're looking for your first win this season, but you already this week have a land speed world record holder. Jake Hughes, tell us about that one, Ian.
I mean, we do have a mini win in that
fantastic.
sense. No, it's phenomenal. If you saw the excitement that he had, and I've done it once today on stage earlier on where I completely murdered the Brummie accent, but he said he was buzzing. I think, you know, it meant a lot to him, a lot more than he thought it was going to. He did come out and say afterwards in the heat of the moment that it was like winning a world championship. I have berated him properly for that because it's nothing like winning a world championship. But no, hats off, he's done very well.
But it was fantastic. You took out basically the Gen Beta car, which was kind of the Gen 3 car with a few modifications to make sure it could go full beans. And then you smashed the land speed record at 218.7 kilometres per hour.
And it just goes to show, if you think back, I mean, you guys were involved in Gen 1. I came a little bit later in Gen 2. But the progression that we've seen in Formula E, you know, to come here to smash that record in the way that it was done, to show the potential that we've got in this package is great.
Brilliant.
So it's actually really nice.
Well, Ian, thank you as always for joining us for the show.
Ian. My pleasure.
And good luck for the weekend.
Thank
Hope that first win comes your way. Thank you very much. And of course, McLaren are supporting this new rather dashing livery, actually. I've got to say, it looks
cool,
good.
Isn't it?
Although worryingly designed by AI.
Uh-oh.
Which means none of us are going to be in a job next year.
Easy. I'm trying to get back into it.
All right, well, maybe you, Oliver. AI couldn't even replicate your work.
That's very good.
Thank you. Thanks, Dario. Let's talk about the challenges of this track because you've raced here before. You know what it's like. We've got, obviously, we love talking about it, the indoor-outdoor sections. But this is a track where you need speed, you need strategy, but you also need proper physical strength. I remember the guys coming out of the car last year absolutely exhausted.
Yes, so on board here with a drone going through turn 1, turn 2, extremely physical. This surface on the indoor part is like sandpaper, and with more grip, thanks to the sandpaper, that steering wheel gets very, very heavy. And we see it through these switchback corners, a quick left and right. It takes a lot of toll and a lot of force through that upper body to move the steering wheel. These cars don't have power steering. So a lot of training being done before these drivers get to the track, you know, really working out their upper bodies, and it's going to be a difficult task for them.
What's the kickback like when you jump over the curbs?
It's tough. It's really hard on my wrists. I remember here towards the end of the season last year, my wrists being very sore, and yeah, that's just because of the curb. So here, this is an onboard with me. Look at that, beautiful. Dario, critique.
That's beautiful. I mean, such a smooth start. This was the one. This was not the lap when you put poor Oliver Rowland into the wall at turn 3.
Call it a racing incident.
No, but you know better than anybody just how difficult this track is and how easy it is to get involved in that mid-pack, somebody else's incident. So I think they're up against it tomorrow and on Sunday.
I love watching that. It's like bringing back great memories.
Okay,
I had a strong weekend
back in the car. Come on.
Now, before we run out of time, this is a reminder for you guys to get involved with the Formula E Predictor. Look at that QR code and vote for your favourite driver. Guys, who are you going to predict to win?
I've got to go with Jake.
You've got to go with Jake.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I really don't know. I'll go Sam Bird completely. Sam's going to put.
Whew, where did that come from? Sam Bird. Well, we are ready for the first live session. FP1 gets underway in just a few moments' time. We cannot wait to see what happens here in London.
Welcome to London, the season finale of Season 9 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. A double-header to decide our drivers and teams world champions, as it all starts right here for free practice 1. My name's Sauna CB, and I'm delighted to be in the commentary booth to kick off this season finale weekend, coming off the back of the incredibly exciting, incredibly dramatic doubleheader in Rome. And of course, another change of championship leader going into this weekend. Now, we've returned to the capital for the 6th weekend of racing in London, the 3rd at the indoor-outdoor layout at the XL Arena. Now, London has been the championship deciding venue twice before in seasons 1 and 2 and in the Gen 1 era, but it's the first time we go into the final weekend with a British driver at the top of the standings. Could we see Formula E's first British champion be crowned on British soil? Let's take a look at how the calendar has looked so far this season. It's been an incredible weekend or season of amazing locations. 4 new locations, including Hyderabad, Cape Town, Sao Paulo and Portland. But it all comes down to a close this weekend. One last push for glory on an incredibly unique indoor-outdoor circuit in London. And how do things stand going into that doubleheader season finale in London? That is just like this. Driver standings, we're going to be going into that in just a little bit, talking about who is at the top of the championship, who's close behind, who's still in it, who's in for a fight, as we look at some of the drivers now. Jake Dennis, the man at the top of the standings. And then Maximilian Günther, massive second half of the season for him, climbing up the order, now sits in P6, doing very well. But let's have a deeper dive into the points and how things look ahead of this doubleheader season finale. Now, here's how things stand. British driver Jake Dennis leads by 24 points with 195. There's less than a race win worth of points between him and Cassidy in second, and 58 points up for grabs over the weekend. Still very much in the mix, although with a big job in their hands, to be fair, is Mitch Evans and Porsche's Pascal Wehrlein in 4th. Very strong chance for Dennis to wrap this all up on Saturday, but as Formula E has shown us in the past, expect the unexpected. Now looking at the second half of the grid, we've got reigning champion Stoffel van Dorn in 11th, the likes of season 3 champion Lucas de Grassi in 16th, and closing it out are the Mahindra and Cooper, Oliver Rowland and Robin Bryant. Now let's have a look at how things look in the team standings, because that is a lot closer. Just 35 points between the top 4 teams of Envision Racing, Tag Heuer Porsche, Jaguar TCS and Avalanche, and there's 94 points up for grabs this weekend, if my math is correct, in this doubleheader. So yeah, very close and still lots that can change in that. Now, if we look at the track, we'll see what's contended, and I'd like to introduce Oliver Askew and Karun Chandok. Oliver, talk us through the circuit we've been racing on this week.
Yeah, let's do it. Very difficult track. indoor-outdoor section, disorienting for some drivers to go into the sunlight here in sunny London. Turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, very tight, especially this section through 6 and 7. Now onto the back part of the circuit, a passing opportunity here in the chicane of turn 10, and into one of the most difficult hairpin approaches on the calendar through turn 15. Big bump on entry to turn 16. Another passing opportunity here through the final couple of corners, back indoors, across the finish line.
Excellent work. Now, I want to do that introduction again because I was rushed introducing the two people joining me in the commentary booth. It's, of course, Oliver Askew, former Avalanche and Jessie driver, sitting next to me. And, of course, we've got former Formula 1 driver, former Formula E driver, Karun Chandok, also back in the booth. Great to have you, mate. How are you doing?
Oh, great to be here. Yeah, no, weather looks lovely outside. I think, you know, I was saying earlier when we were looking at the track on the pad, I think we've only had a practice session here, haven't we, where it's been wet, which is quite extraordinary considering, you know, we're in England and it rains a lot. But I'd like to see just how that would play out, right? Because you got 10 corners under the roof, which will be dry, and then you've got the other 10 which won't, and that would be quite good fun for us watching. Be stressful if you're in the car.
We came so close on our first visit here. I remember the race finished, and about 20 minutes later, the rain was biblical.
Yeah.
A lot of London was flooded, actually, so yeah, narrowly avoided the race. But you were all right, that change of surface with the wet, who knows what sort of carnage that could bring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all went home with wet socks that day, didn't we? Kind of walked to the taxi rank. Yeah.
Cars are out now on track for this first session of the weekend, kicking off this season finale in London for free practice 1. 30 minutes left on this session. Now, there's a few things I want to talk to you guys about. Let's get cracking with some of the key themes and topics for this season finale. Now, first of all, starting off with Jake Dennis. Winning, or the potential of winning on home soil. And it's not just for him as well. Much of the Avalanche Andretti team, it's a home race for them as well, including the HQ being up in Banbury. So what does that do in terms of incentive and feeling going into a race like this?
Listen, I think it's great to be able to, you know, to seal it at home, but I think in their situation, they're much more focused on the championship. They don't care if the race is going to be here or in Rome or in Timbuktu. You know, they just want to win it.
Some small, very small drops of rain, but nothing to
Attention
worry
all
about.
teams, attention all teams. This is race control. Full course
Very
yellow.
interesting. That's Sandberg's team radio saying small drops of rain already.
Full course yellow, full course yellow.
You jinxed it there, Saunders.
Perhaps I did.
I think there's a full course yellow test ongoing at the moment, isn't it? That's one of the McLarens testing the chicane escape road, which is actually quite a useful thing to know, because I imagine when we get to the race, there are going to be people, you know, dicing for that braking zone into the chicane.
There's no speed limit through there, is there?
Yeah, you want to know what the get out of jail card is.
Yep.
Attention all teams, this is race control. Full course yellow ending in 5.
So yeah, full course yellow ending in a few seconds.
3,
Scott Elkins there
2,
announcing that.
1. Green flag, green flag.
Now we get to see how these guys start faring on this circuit. It's incredibly interesting because we've raced here a few times before. We know who's been good in the past, but it's almost like a big reset because we don't know how Gen 3 will be.
It's also in a reset in a sense that it's the most grip that we will see on this Formula E calendar, and that can catch a lot of teams out. It's very different to the baseline setup that most of these Formula E teams take to every race week, and I'm speaking mechanically, the spring rates, the cambers, the ride heights, things like this. It's a very different track in that sense, so there's a big chance, you know, that some of these teams in the back can make a big jump forward and all of a sudden, you know, compete for a win. Saying that, they all tend to figure it out through the first couple of practice sessions, and there's so much data and analytics going on behind the scenes in this current stage and era of Formula E here with the Gen 3 car, the most technologically advanced electric racing car ever built, and a lot of great minds here in the paddock as well. Speaking of great minds,
your old boss,
my ex-boss,
Roger Griffiths there on screen, team boss of Avalanche Andretti. We're now watching Jake Dennis, current championship leader, have a go at this circuit. The timings are starting to come in. Obviously, there's still 26 minutes left of the session. We really will see the timings worth considering towards the end of the session. But there are a few other considerations for this weekend of racing, because what we will figure out quite quickly is how much qualifying will play into the overall race result.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hugely important. You know, we haven't had a winner here from outside the top 3. Now, if you consider some of the races Cassidy's driven and won this year, you know, he's been outside the top 8. And I just don't think on this sort of track layout and with the way the energy numbers are this weekend, you'll have that. You know, I think it is a narrower track than most others we go to, and therefore being able to defend the line is a bit easier. So qualifying and the way the duels will play out is going to be massively important for not just the title contenders, but I think for everyone who wants to get a strong result for the end of the year.
So the other aspect to think about, though, is this FIA deduction of usable energy, because they've tried to sort of negate that slightly, in the sense where that they want more overtaking to happen. They want the race to be a little bit more, you know, it not be as hard to overtake as we've seen in the past. So they've reduced the energy by quite a significant amount, which obviously resets the strategy for a lot of teams. Now, is that going to play into the hands of the Jaguar-powered cars that have shown incredible efficiency, not just in the start of the race, but right in the closing stages where it really matters?
Well, I think with more coasting, it brings the efficiency of the cars more together. So it's less of an issue, I would say, with more coasting and less battery available at the beginning of the race. So we're going to go on board here with Jake Dennis through the first sector. Now we're with Max Gunther. He's a replay going straight in the chicane, similar to the McLaren.
Turn off, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he missed his turning. He needs to get the navigation back on. Because there are a couple of things just to further on from your point there.
Sorry, Saunders, just to interrupt. I mean, here, look, he's missed the corner. He's gone into that runoff area. And then what do you do at this point, I wonder? Because this is, you know, do you then come back onto the track head on, or do you turn left into that?
Maybe he doesn't know that that's an option to go straight through the chicane there.
He should have paid more attention to the track walk if that was the case.
Didn't do his homework, Mr. Max Gunther.
But I actually think it's a tighter radius to turn into that shortcut, and so he was a bit worried that he may not be able to actually make that corner. So I think that'll be a discussion point for the drivers, because I'm never a fan of seeing cars rejoining head-on, you know, into oncoming traffic, basically. So yeah, I think that'll be a conversation with the race director.
So as we start seeing these times coming in, the Jaguar-powered cars of the Jaguar TCS Racing and the Envision racing cars looking very good in the top 3 as it stands. This circuit, I think, is quite unique for a number of reasons. Of course, we've got the indoor, outdoor, multiple surface situation. But the other side of it is that it requires a third characteristic within the drivers, where it's always about race, pace, and intelligence. But this requires strength, because it's an incredibly physically demanding circuit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I remember being absolutely knackered here at the end of the race last year in the Gen 2 car. And from what I hear from these drivers, this car is even more physical than Gen 2, because you have that added regenerative engine at the front axle. So as you're bending into the corner on the brakes, heading into the apex, the wheel is fighting you as the front tires try to regenerate energy. So for example here, you're not off the brake until there at the apex. So until that point, the steering wheel is extremely heavy. And through this sector, it's very tight.
Well, I actually want to just draw the viewers' attention to this bit here.
Yes.
We were talking about this earlier. Incredibly heavy, braking zone there.
So there is a compression. You're going down the hill, and the car compresses. There's a lot of vertical G there in turn 6, I believe. And that's just added grip to the front axle. It makes it even more heavy on the wheel. And we spoke in the pre-session show that there isn't any power steering in this car. And you know, for the viewers, to wrap your head around that, it's just extremely heavy, the steering wheel. And here, fighting the car into turn 16, the difficult braking that I spoke about earlier.
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? We discussed it earlier, how, you know, it's the style of circuit and the relentlessness of the corners one after the other, and the fact that there is no rest in the lap. So for a whole race length, it's just one corner after the other, wrestling that car. His Cassidy Sim radio.
Let's go race. Next lap, go race.
So go race mode, which is now testing the coast tones and regen tones. So basically trying to, you know, correlate that lap based on their simulation lap earlier in the week back at each team's factory. So
that's the targets, isn't it, Kareem?
Yeah, I think it's worth explaining that for people at home. You know, the cars in qualifying and when they do the duels will run at maximum speed, maximum pace. They don't care about how much energy they're using over those one laps. But when they get to the race, they basically start the race without enough energy that they would need to finish it. It's about 80%, I think, so they've got to recover 20%. So the teams and the drivers would have done a whole lot of work on the simulator and through mathematical simulations and tried to figure out this is where the best places are for you to coast, and this is the best maps. You see the switch in the steering wheel. They can use different settings to recover the energy. But you have to actually test that in practice. And there's so many variables in that. You know, the track surface, we're using temporary surfaces here. It's the first time we've come here with a Hankook tyre, so we don't know how that tyre is going to work on this surface. So there are a lot of unknowns. And therefore, they've got to, the first thing they have to do in this first practice session is try and correlate what's happening in the real world to everything they've learned. And if they've got that correlation right, that then makes the rest of their weekend easier. If they're way off with those numbers, then there's a lot of head scratching that needs to happen tonight.
And I mean, absolutely. And in comparison as well with driver to driver and team to team, just the smallest margin in efficiency, we're talking a percent or even a decimal of a percent, has such a huge impact, to the point where if that beep that they get in their ear telling them to start coasting happens just 10 meters later than another team, that's a huge advantage going into a corner and potential overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, throw in trying to defend and overtake other cars. It can be very, very difficult, and you know, very often we see these drivers finding themselves in a bad situation towards the end of the race without energy to make it to the finish line, and that's exactly what you want to stay away from. So picking your battles and managing the race from the very beginning is extremely important, and one of those drivers who does that very, very well is Mr. Lucas de Grassi, one of the most experienced drivers.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of people that have run races in Formula E, there are very few that have done more than him. In fact, I'm not sure there are anyone that's done more than him in Formula E anymore. I think he's the most experienced driver on the grid. And just to kind of round off this discussion about energy efficiency and coasting, all that, is this FIA deduction that we mentioned earlier. If you need it, to explain a bit further, that's where that comes in, isn't it? That deduction, if we're already starting a race with less energy than you need to finish it, and then the FIA deduct even more, it changes the strategy.
Yeah, certainly. Here's a replay of Mitch Evans. Now this is going into that compression that I spoke about earlier, turn 6. It's a pretty cool angle.
Yeah. I think, Saunders, to your point about the energy reduction, it's all relative. You know, this is a track layout where you haven't got long straights, you've got a lot of time spent off the pedal, effectively. So therefore, the amount of energy you're actually using is much less anyway. So therefore, you know, that reduction, I think, will have less of an impact here.
Yeah.
And that's why they've done it, right? They don't want to make it easy. They want to make it a challenge, and they want to make it, and that's what a World Championship should be about. It shouldn't be easy. It should be, you know, this is the pinnacle of electric racing on the planet, and therefore the best teams and the best drivers in electric racing should be able to rise to that challenge. And they tinker that usable energy number depending on the track layout, and they change that. You know, we should point out, it's not just been changed for this weekend. It's something that's been changed on multiple occasions throughout this year.
Although the only thing to notice with that is the amount that they've deducted is so much more this weekend than it has previously. We're talking about 1, 2, 3 kilowatts in the previous. It's almost 9 for this race.
Yeah, but that kind of underlines the difference of the track layout here.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm really interested to see what impact that does have, if any, based on qualifying position. It's going to be so interesting, and also because either side of racing plays into either Jake Dennis or Nick Cassidy's hands, so it's sort of perfect for the championship. Here's the Apt Cupras out on track. A solid improvement, I would say, for the Mahindra-powered Apt Cupras in the season. They started off really struggling. At Berlin, they had that kind of freak, amazing qualifying result in the rain, and then there was a handful of points since then for the guys. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been back-to-back points finishes for Nico Müller, who at the beginning of the season both him and his team looked completely lost. So it's very good to see that progression. He doesn't have that much experience in the series as well, so obviously, you know, having more seat time in the car and around these veteran drivers definitely helps.
I mean, arguably, as a customer team, they've done better than the sort of works team, haven't they? Actually,
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I know Degrassi had a high of the first round in Mexico, where he qualified on pole and got a podium. But actually, since, you know, you're right in saying from mid-season on, App seemed to have unlocked a bit more potential, really.
I wonder if that's the benefit of having a team and drivers that have all worked together in the past under the same, even under the same umbrella. There's a Norman Nato replay in the Nissan. Really close to the Mahindra, touching a little bit. Things already getting a little bit hairy in this practice session. Norman Nato, of course, coming off the back of his first podium for the team, for Nissan. Nissan's actually first podium as a manufacturer entry into the championship in Rome.
It's funny, isn't it? Because actually, you know, Fenestras, when I think back to the season, Fenestras has had some amazing qualifyings, like really big highs, it feels like, in qualifying.
Yes.
And I read that stat this morning, actually, about, you know, that being their first podium. It almost surprised me, because, you know, I think of Cape Town, Hyderabad, you know, a few other places. Fenestras has been right up there in the grid, but they've not converted it.
It's really interesting you say that, because exactly the same is true for the customer team of McLaren.
Next 2 laps, push.
Push laps for Jake Dennis. Yeah, the exact same thing is true for the McLaren team, who use the same powertrain, of course. You've got the headlines being made by Jake Hughes, but Renault Ras is the only one with the podium. And those guys are in their own little battle, actually, in the team's championship, which is super interesting.
I want to point out, though, that those two teams have a rookie. Yes. They both have a rookie in the car, and those are the drivers who tend to qualify well, but once they go racing, they don't have the experience to manage the battery and race other cars at the same time. So that may play into the results as well. As we go on board here, we have a shot of Jake Dennis on a push lap. Two-time winner here in London. This track is so much about precision. You can see how close he is getting to the walls at very high speeds.
We're getting two angles of Jake Dennis at the moment, which is great, seeing the onboard and the track cam. Let's see how he gets on as he comes into this third sector, into the new indoor section, we'll say our undercover section, up the ramp and into the final couple of corners here. Let's see what sort of time he can put in.
Not going particularly quick. Okay, so he's going to set up another push lap. That could have been a preparation lap to get his brakes and tires at the temperature and in the right window.
Very early, of course, to even begin to talk about this, but you're looking at the top two times at the moment. We've got, well, just been replaced by Mitch Evans, but Nick Cassidy and Sebastian Worming in the top three. In terms of the team's championship, if they can do that in the race, then they're laughing, because they currently lead that, and that would be a huge thing for the customer of Envision to beat the manufacturer of Jaguar.
Yeah, that would be huge, and we spoke about it earlier. It's that cash and that extra bonuses that each team get based on their team championship position is crucial when it comes to development and hiring new people and getting the best parts for the following year.
We always talk about the drivers as we ride on board here. Jake Dennis is actually doing quite a good lap here. His quickest time in the first and second sector doesn't look like it might be.
Car's nowhere at the moment, boys. Balance all over the shop.
That's not the kind of tone you want to hear from a championship leader going into the final race. But
cars all over the shop, he said. Balance is
I mean, you can see how much he was missing the apex in some of those corners there. It just
looks like a lot of understeer.
Yeah, just struggling to get any front grip and front bite. But, you know, look, this is tricky, isn't it? You know, this track has not been used now for a year. And it's been used for a whole load of other events in that time. So you do have to be mindful of just changing the car too much too early in the weekend, because then as the grip comes and the track cleans up a bit, you know, you could end up just getting a bit lost.
Exactly that, and so much of Formula E is about perfecting the systems of the car and the software, which is now part of the deceleration. It's all fly-by-wire. You're depending on both the front and rear axle, which now both have regenerative engines to slow down the car. And if that's not working properly, if that's not balance, if that balance isn't perfect, then that's going to carry all the way into the apex.
So we're on board now with Eduardo Mortara, who hasn't had the best of seasons in that Maserati MSG racing car. 15th in the standings. Just team radio, Jake Dennis.
I have a massive disconnect with the balance through high speed. It's like nervous entry, a pop off the brake, and then it just understeers like crazy.
Well, I mean, I was about to ask you to explain that, but Jake Dennis done quite a good job of doing that himself.
Yeah, we saw it in the onboard. You know, as soon as he turns into the apex, he adds a lot of wheel, almost full lock, and he's missing the apex. He's wide of the middle of the corner, where he should be touching the curb. So that's just a telltale sign of under rotation. Either the rear is pushing the front axle and overpowering the front axle, or it's just not enough grip coming from those front tires. So it's a difficult one for his engineers to try and figure out. You know, is it the track that's not coming in yet, like Karun said, or is it the driver who's asking too much of the car on entries? I know Jake Dennis is a guy who likes to attack those braking zones and brings a lot of speed into the apex. So it could be something that he needs to, you know, manage himself.
I mean, it's interesting to put this into a championship perspective. You know, we talked about in the pre-show about Dennis only needing 6 points ahead of Cassidy to wrap things up on Saturday. There are obviously other permutations as well with Mitch Evans and Pascal Wehrlein, mostly Mitch Evans. You're looking at the timings right now, and it looks like the two closest competitors for him, Evans and Cassidy, both up to pace much quicker than Dennis.
Yeah, this looks like a more put together lap from him. He's going for a second try and now goes just behind Nick Cassidy, just a couple of hundredths away. So a better lap from him, but we can expect the times to just continue tumbling down as the track gets cleaner, more rubber gets put down.
You have to be careful looking at times this early in the weekend, just because you don't, you know, if a team has arrived here and just, you know, hit the ground running with the optimum setup for the low grip conditions of free practice 1, they'll be super quick. And I think that's some of the thing it probably is. You know, the target of where the pace is keeps changing. Got a yellow flag at turn 1 there. You can see the marshal waving. Might have been that apt car gone off and rejoined. Was it Muller?
Yeah, I mean, Karun, as always with the reality check there, I'm just trying to build a story, but I get it. It is too early to talk about this.
Qualifying. You get your chance to build your story. Like, honestly,
easy. Take a breath.
Love it, love it. Okay, let's see what Jean-Eric Vergne can do. He's 13th there for the DS Penske driver.
It's been a disappointing year for them, hasn't it, really? You know, considering they've got 2 former champions there. There were some highs. You know, the win in Hyderabad from Jev was a quality drive. He started the last lap with 1% energy, and we all thought, oh, he's going to be done by the hairpin. And he amazingly hung on and beat Cassidy that day. But you know, Van Dorn's had a disappointing year. Hasn't won a race this season.
Just the pole position.
Hasn't had a podium either, I don't think, has he?
No.
So, yeah, it's been a disappointing year, I think, for them as a collective.
And then we're riding on, or looking now at the Nissan. Coming in to finish the lap. Where does that put them? Sasha Fenish's currently just in the top 10, 10th position. Just about 6/10 off the fastest driver, Mitch Evans, currently. And then we're looking at Jake Dennis back in the garage again for a change of tyres. Maybe some change of setup, potentially help that balance problem.
Yeah, I'd love to hear this conversation that's happening right now, but there is we call it an umbilical cord that plugs into the car, and the driver and team can have a private conversation, so nothing is on air that we can tap into. We might have a team radio here from Jake.
Struggling with everything. Systems are complete for indoor section. Have so much entry oversteer into turns 1 through DMC and lat, and then the car just doesn't turn at all as soon as you go outside.
So it could be a case of entry oversteer induced understeer, you know, where you're unable to slow down the car properly before entering the apex. So whenever the rear is moving under the brakes, naturally you're going to want to release the brake, right, to try and control the car. But then you're carrying too much speed into the apex, which then causes under rotation. So Roger Griffiths looking anxiously.
But I think this is where someone like Roger Griffiths, with all his experience, has just got to lend a bit of calm there. Because if you listen to Jake's comments, you'd think they put the front wheels on the back and they turn the car upside down. But it just needs that sort of calm voice to say, hey, okay, we get the balance is not where you like, we get there are lots of things we need to fix, but you're less than 3/10 off the biggest time at the moment. So clearly, nobody's got a great balance at the moment. The grip isn't there in the circuit, and it just needs. And as a driver, it's tough, right? You're in there in one of the biggest weekends of your career, and the car doesn't feel good underneath you. And actually, the way you need people around you to sort of guide you, like Roger, I think, is to say, look, if you've got all these problems, you're only less than 3/10 away. We'll fix some of them, and then you'll be amazing. So let's just chip away at it and just find the balance.
Chances are the other drivers are having the same issues.
Yeah, exactly. But exactly.
Everything, the stress heightened though with the feeling around going into a potential championship winning weekend for Jake Dennis. I imagine everything means a lot more, or feels a lot more pressured.
It's in Jake's best interest to go back to the team with a calm voice and really explain clearly what the car is doing instead of cussing them out on the radio. But of course it's better said, easily said than done. Sorry.
Yep, got it. And scenario 9, please. Scenario 9. We'll push 350 next lap.
So it looks like we're seeing McLaren driver Jake Hughes go out for a push lap now. Now, in terms of fastest drivers, we haven't seen a qualifying session yet, but we do know that Jake Hughes is the fastest man to drive indoors in a car now, with the land speed record broken just a few days ago by Jake Hughes. It was 218 kilometers per hour indoors here at the Excel Centre. And now, this man, Jake Hughes, the rookie British driver, is a Guinness World Record holder. Pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. Where did he do that? Was it on the start-finish straight?
On the start-finish straight.
Wow. That's very cool.
A slightly tweaked version of the Gen 3 car. Sort of that they opened up the front powertrain, so they had four-wheel drive, and there's the slightly softer version of the Hankook iron tyres. So yeah, a bit of a help on the way, but yeah, still it was him versus Degrassi, and Jake Hughes got the bragging rights.
So Degrassi, what's he up to? 17th at the moment. I mean, Andre Lotterer was down in 18th. It's been a slog for him this season, hasn't it? When he's seeing his teammate, one hand on the championship trophy, and Andre's just not. It doesn't look like he's enjoyed it either. Every time you look at him, he just does not look like he's happy or enjoyed the season at all.
Yes, tough break that, tough ride, because at the start of the season when Jake was on the podium from the start, and now has a record number of podiums in a season, and then to have his teammate not be able to extract the same performance from the car, yeah, it's a real shame. Now just 3 minutes left, or just under 3 minutes left of the session, and we are looking at a Jaguar powered 1, 2, 3 in the timings, including that of Sebastian Buemi and Nick Cassidy in the Envision, currently top of the team standings, looking very good. Or Norman Nasse has just come and sport the party with that great lap.
Yeah, the track's continuing to get better all the way to the end, so these laps count. This is somewhat representative of what they're going to see and what they're going to feel in FP2 tomorrow morning, and then ultimately qualifying. That's the all-important session before race 1 of the weekend tomorrow. So on board here with Sete Camara. Crossing the line, goes 12th, 6/10 off. Now just 2 minutes remaining. And yeah, like you said, Saunders, a couple of Jaguar-powered cars at the top. Jake Dennis just inside the top 10 and 8th. We'll see if he's able to figure things out and put a bit of a quicker time in.
I mean, as always, incredibly close and tight in Formula E. The top 5 separated by less than half a second, which is always impressive to see, especially with so many unknowns still at this point with a Gen 3 car on a circuit that a Gen 3 car hasn't raced at before.
Dan Dicton is top 8 now.
I was wondering what Dan would do. I thought like he would
I mean, most people wonder that on a daily basis, really. I think the other drivers wake up in the morning going, what will Dan do today to me?
You think Vernon Kay's tuned in?
I think, yeah, but Vernon Kay is always a silent Dan Tickton fan, wasn't he? Or not so silent,
Not very
actually.
silent.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's sitting in the Dan Tickton fan club at the moment, isn't he?
Scarf, everything on.
In his Gucci shoes.
Yeah. Andre Lostra put a quickest second sector for him in. Robin Fry's quickest first sector for him, but still, yeah, nothing to write home about for those guys as of yet. 19th and 20th in the timings.
I want to mention that it's even more impressive for Jake to do as well as he's done this year, and what we could say is almost a one-man team at the moment. So with Lauderer not being able to perform, Jake doesn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of, right? Both with the engineers who check different mechanical settings and things like this. It's even more impressive for Jake to do as well as he's done this year.
It's certainly made the team's championship harder, hasn't it, for Andretti? You know, they're still in the top 4 solely based on Jake's work, mostly. So yeah.
No, it's true.
Yeah. Let's see what Robin Fry can do.
Good point.
Wouldn't it be incredible if we did have a bit of rain in qualifying, and then the App Cooper just came out and did an amazing performance like they did in Berlin, and we're up there 1-2 again?
I mean, it never rains in England, so what happened?
Now, that is the checkered flag on the session. This is the last lap for any of the drivers doing a push lap. We'll see if the timings change, but as it stands, it is Norman Nato, Sebastian Buemi, Max Günther just puts in a top 3 time, Mitch Evans, Nick Cassidy, Pascal Wehrlein. It's the consistency, isn't it, with those championship contenders? Even when it comes down to 1 lap pace in free practice, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. It's just season-long consistency, and that's why they are where they are. Incredible end to the session by the Nissans. Norman Nasso and Sasha Fenestraz getting up to speed with this London indoor-outdoor circuit in the Nissans and putting a top 1 first and second timing in. Great work.
Well, Buemi's on a lap as well as Da Costa. We'll see. Da Costa stays 7th. Buemi's in the final sector. He's coming into the last couple of corners now, so we'll see what he does on this lap. 6,000s. So we have got a yellow flag somewhere. Somebody's had an off, I think, down at 17-18. Towards the end of the lap. Oh, maybe it's a yellow flag to slow people down to come in the pits.
So that looks like it's it. Yeah, every lap come in now. Norman Nato tops the session. Jake Dennis, radio.
Okay, mate, well done. Let's check it. That's P3 on 300, P3 on 300. Pace on 300 in the end, 11.26, so a 10th.
Championship leader Jake Dennis finishing just outside the top 10 in this free practice 1 session. About 6/10 off the pace of Norman Nato leading the session in the Nissan. Sebastian Buemi in the Envision. Norman Nato's teammate Sasha Fenestraz closing out the top 3. Maximilian Günther and then Mitch Evans finishing the top 5, just under half a second out.
I want to explain that radio transmission from Dennis's engineer. So there's 2 different power modes that are being tested in this session, both 350 kilowatts power and 300 power. And the timing board that we see on the screen now is all 350 power, which is what they use in the duels. In regular qualifying stages, group 1 and 2, it's the 300 power, which Jake was, it sounded like he was P3 in, which is it's a timing that we don't see at the moment, but I wouldn't be too worried about his pace based on that radio transmission.
Okay, Oliver, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about these practice starts now, because this is a very unique surface in this start-finish straight in London.
Yeah, so there's a launch control system in these cars. Basically, the engineers set a certain amount of torque. So as soon as you let go of the paddle on the steering wheel, that torque will set in, and that number is going to be very high at this track in particular because there's so much grip on the indoor section. So the 0 to 60 time will be very impressive here.
Yeah, I mean, it's that instant torque, isn't it? That instant power coming through the tyres all at the same time, having to manage that to keep the traction, and this surface massively aids that, doesn't it?
As a driver, it's very cool to feel. It's a kick in the back end, I guess you could say.
Great, love to hear that. Good insight, and I imagine potentially helpful towards Jake Hughes' record attempt as well here.
Yes.
Right Now just at the last closing stages of this session as they finish their in-lap after the practice starts and come in. And yeah, that was, I think, a good session. There's still some stories to be found there. We'll see what happens in free practice 2 and qualifying, but let's take a look at how this session ended up in terms of timings. So here we go on screen. We're going to see how this session finished off. It was Norman Nato in the Nissan topping the session, followed by Sebastian Buemi in the Envision racing car. Sacha Fenestraz, Nato's teammate, also in the Nissan in the top 3. Maximilian Günther showing that similar pace we've seen since Jakarta in the Maserati MSG racing car. And closing out the top 5, Mitch Evans in the Jaguar TCS racing car. Interestingly, we have the first of the championship contenders, Mitch Evans in the top 5, Nick Cassidy in the top 10, but Jake Dennis, 11th, just outside of the top 10 in that first free practice session. Still some work to do for him and the Avalanche Andretti team to get up to pace, or at least match the pace of their competitors. Although for him, the likes of Nissan, and Maserati and Neo, not an issue for him in the drivers' standings. So yeah, still some work to do, but I'm sure they'll turn it around for free practice 2 tomorrow morning. We look at the London skyline here, racing in the heart of London, indoor, outdoor. Let's have a quick look at some of these highlights. This is Nissan's Sacha Fenestraz, the Envision racing car of I think Sebastian Buemi there. And the other Nissan of Norman Nato there. Really good showing for the Nissans, really good showing. It's great pace from them, good solid way to end this season with great pace. We have Sam Bird here from Jaguar TCS Racing. Now, he needs to put in a good performance this weekend just to really help the team, because they're up there in the team championship, but they need to put the pressure on Envision, who are currently beating them as the customer team. So a dual effort, both from Mitch and Sam Bird, is needed to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said earlier, that team championship is so important for the funding that's being pumped into these teams and the off-season preparation, getting ready for the next season. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars between each position in the team's championship. So yeah, definitely in Sam's best interest to do well for his team and for himself as well. People only remember your last event. So, if it's a struggle this weekend, it's going to be a long off-season.
But how will this man, Jake Dennis, I don't even want to use the word bounce back because it's so early, but how will what will they do to the car overnight to get that balance or imbalance he was talking about sorted and compete for better lap time tomorrow? We shall wait and see in that. There we've got Sebastian Buemi here just disappearing in the back of the garage. Vision, Mitch Evans walking down to get ways. And now we can have a little look at how this session unfolded. Some of the key highlights from this free practice 1 in London of this season finale weekend. Let's take a look at that. So the cars left for the start of the free practice 1 sessions. Jake Dennis heading out onto the track there.
As we see a McLaren, I believe that was Jake Hughes. On Zach Brown looking on, Jake Hughes going straight through the chicane.
Maximilian Günther doing the same, although didn't use the same slip exit road that Jake Hughes did. It decided to go for a much more slower way of getting out of that corner.
And Pascal Wehrlein going through turns 5 and 6, that big compression that we spoke about, and Norman Nato.
Quick touch there, wasn't it? A little touch there at the back between the Nissan and the Mahindra.
Just being caught out by the slower car in the final 2 corners. Jake Dennis, the man of the hour.
Although not of the session. He's got work to do to get that pace up to scratch. So the pace that we're used to seeing him deliver in London. We're talking about a guy with pole positions and race wins here. In fact, the only other place that he's had a Grand Slam, pole position, fastest lap and race win is London.
Hey, he knows the place. And the team is very capable of giving him a fantastic car. So I'm sure they're going to dig deep tonight and look at everything. Give him the best possible car they can tomorrow, which is going to be quite possibly the biggest day of his career.
Love that. Love that. You're setting it up, Oliver. I like it. We'd like to hear it. Biggest day of his career. You heard it here first. I'm sure Jake Dennis would agree. Norman Nato topped the timing. Now here's Stoffel Van Dorn, an interesting story with Stoffel. We finished that session P14. And pace, one-lap pace has been pretty much, I don't want to say the only area, but one of the key areas he has been able to extract anything this season. Antonio Felix Acosta, not the same. He has had podiums, one race win, and some decent pace as well, as he talks to Nick Cassidy. A bit of a friendly exchange there between the two Kiwis. Potentially, as we're hearing the rumour, future teammates next season. That is the rumour, of course, unconfirmed by the teams, but that's what we're hearing on the grapevine.
That'd be a strong team.
That'd be a very strong team. Sasha Fenestraz, all smiles there, lovely embrace with one of his team members. Not surprised. Top 3 timing in the first practice is a good way to set your intentions for the season. But yeah, there we go. That is how the session has finished. Norman Atto on top, Sebastian Buemi, Sasha Fenestraz, Günther and Evans topping up the top 5. Free practice 2 tomorrow.